We have a question from Finn next. It says, should my plan towards a diversified portfolio be different if I'm retiring early rather than a traditional retirement age? FYI, I'm 25 and I want to retire at 50. I'm scared to diversify too early and miss growth. What do you think?
Well, Finn, this is very, very intuitive of you, right? Because a lot of people, when they think about retirement portfolios, they assume, all retirement portfolios must be created equal, right? Like, okay, when you retire, boom, I go to a 50-50 or whatever that may be. Well, that may not make the most sense, because if you think about a traditional retirement, a normal retirement in this country, where someone plans on retiring at age 65, you're really looking at a 20 to 30 year retirement time horizon. So you want a portfolio that can sustain that person for 20 to 30 years. If you're someone who's thinking about retiring early and you're thinking about checking out of the workforce in your 40s or your 50s, well, now you might be, instead of looking at a 20 to 30 year retirement, you might need a portfolio that's going to last for 40 to 50 years. Well, I would argue that if you have a 40 to 50 year timeline where the dollars have to be able to sustain you versus a 20 to 30 year timeline, the risk tolerances and risk capacities necessary and appropriate for those portfolios are not going to be the same. So I would think that someone retiring early, and this is interesting, and this is what I want to hear you talk about, Brian, in a certain sense, they might need their assets to be more aggressive, but they might need their plan to be more conservative. We talk a lot about that when we talk about safe withdrawal rates and how you think about the sustainability of a portfolio over the long term.
Yeah, I was, it's so hard because we started this whole Q&A today talking about diversification versus VOO for ride or die, essentially into a total market or S&P fund. That's what I see all over social media. But I do think about the fact of when you retire early, that means you actually need access to your assets to live off of. Mm-hmm. And as I've shared earlier, that there is that whole risk capacity thing where you don't want to have to try to take access to your assets when the market's down 37 to 50%, because you're going to be essentially eating the core principle of your investment. So you're eating the heart first. And that's less than ideal. So somebody who thinks that they want access to their assets at 50, you probably are around, somewhere in the early to mid 40s. You're going to have to hit the brakes really hard to ensure the money's there when you need to start pulling it out. That's something to pay attention to. I wrote down that there's outside factors, so it's hard to give specific advice on this. I was thinking about a military person. Like, I have a cousin. He worked, he's in the military army for 20 plus years, mm-hmm. retired, but he's still a young man in my eyes. And the fact that he was in his 40s when he came out of the army, but he's got a full pension. Mm-hmm. So
changes the calculus.
His needs on his allocation is completely different than somebody who's saving from 25 to 50. So without knowing where your outside sources are, as well as what your expense structure, because also I think about some, this isn't specifically for this person asking the question, but I think about, like, I have a client, even though they have multiple 7-figure portfolio, they're now in an assisted living facility that's kind of already been taken care of, because it was a lump sum type investment. And then they have also Social Security come in. They just don't burn through the assets. So we've actually taken a different approach, even though they're older, because we're thinking about it from a asset building, legacy mm-hmm. building type thing for the beneficiaries of these assets. So that's what I mean, we all are our own snowflakes or fingerprints. We're all unique, and it's those different elements of the need, the why, and all the factors that line up that give you your specific financial mm-hmm. plan. But hopefully we give you enough through all of our free content so you can at least go ahead and start building the blocks of success, and live your best version. And I hope that's where the abundance cycle comes in once you get to, man, I'm in my mid 40s. I've got 7 figures, because multiple 7 figures, because I'm trying to be out of the game at 50. you've only had one retirement. We've done hundreds of retirements. So just consider taking the relationship to the next level once you get to that complexity.
I love it. And I'm just going to put an exclamation point on that. No two retirement plans are the exact same. We've helped a bunch of clients retire early. We've helped people move into the financial independence early on idea. They're all different. They're all unique. They're all custom built. So be careful assuming, Finn, oh, okay, I read a blog post that said I got to shift my allocation to this. I'm going to shift my allocation to this. I'm going to leave the workforce. That may make sense for your situation, but it may not because of all the variables Brian just laid out.
Well, we didn't even get into the account structures.
Yep.
I mean, think about it. I had a client that I remember they had a 7-figure portfolio, but they couldn't pay cash for their car. And I'm like, we've got a problem here.
Yep.
I mean, you brought in all these retirement assets. You didn't get to step 7, obviously, because you weren't thinking about how we needed to have access to the assets. And then you have another client that maybe they sold a piece of real estate or a business, and they have all their money as in after-tax assets. We didn't even get into that complexity because the account structure plays a big part in this discussion as well.
Yep.